It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It is a Football Friday here on Sports by the Book. I'm Jeff Parles. Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, they're both here. I was a game time decision today, but I am here.
Came off the DL, man.
Strong.
Yeah, fortunate. Very happy to be here today. We'll do an hour today. Don't worry. We'll see Vinny on Saturday and Sunday for spots previewing the action across football this week. And, I will say, Chris, we've talked about these bowl games, and that's where we'll start real quick here. Mm-hmm. It is a big card tomorrow, but, again, it's still a lot of unknown in these games, even with 24 hours before a lot of them.
Jeff, it's funny. A lot of these games are it's a race to see who gets the information first. And some of the worst games on the docket, I'm looking at Coastal Carolina, San Jose, Georgia State, Utah State. Those are the games with the biggest action. And then what I think is a legitimate good game, playing right down the street here, by the way, Northwestern Utah, I got almost nothing on that game. So it's really an information game, whereas, ideally, and certainly when I was younger, and Vinny and I would talk about it, but the bowl games were really something special. And, in the last couple of years with all the money that's out there and, kids waiting for these contracts and what have you, it's not as special as it used to be. And that hurts me as a fan. As a bookmaker, we'll adjust. But as a fan, I think it's bad for the game.
It hurts the college product overall. I mean, to Chrissy's point, that's why you can't have the same limits on these games as the playoff games, right? Because there's so much more incentive there for those schools. I mean, a classic example is yesterday. I mean, you look at Syracuse didn't even want to be there.
Syracuse didn't
clearly
even play a quarterback in the
game.
It's
just so. Again, battle of information. Okay, we understand that, and that's what it's about. So the only thing you can do as a bettor is, you're probably not going to bet as much unless you think you have something that is special in terms of information. But as a bookmaker, lower limits, a lot quicker line movement, and just wait for the end of the game and post it.
Always a good sign for Syracuse when number 89 is getting the majority of the pass it down.
There you go.
Always a good sign.
Yeah, I couldn't even watch it.
No, yeah. It was apparent early that Syracuse didn't want to be there.
It's ridiculous.
Turn it off real quick and go right over to the NFL game last night. I do want to ask you this, Chris, because there are games on Tuesday as well.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that the day of the game that the local side of things will start playing itself out a little bit, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see. Jeff, they haven't built up such a huge clientele of bettors that have won all these years.
They've won all these years on betting against UNLV, right?
Yeah, that so much is true. But, Kansas, too. I think Kansas right now is, they're like a burgeoning program. I think they really are intent on winning this game from what I've seen. And, I'm not sure. I haven't seen much UNLV support on the game. I hope that does come to fruition. But we have a pretty good week coming up, even pretty much every day, 2-3 couple games, so we should have a fun week.
I think when you look at this game, maybe folks are waiting for a bigger number, maybe closer to 2 touchdowns, right? I mean, and I think what's also fresh in everybody's mind is, what Boise did to UNLV. Rebels had a terrific season. They got to the Mountain West title game and really were, it was pretty one-sided for most of that game by Boise. So I think that's what's fresh in people's minds, and I think the fact that it's, approaching a couple of touchdowns, maybe that's what some folks looking to bet UNLV, Chrissy, are probably waiting for.
Yeah, 14 is probably a trigger.
Yeah.
That's one of the few games on Tuesday. Again, games throughout the week next week. The week after Christmas usually gets triple headers, quadruple headers into the college bowl season. We fully go. Let's bring him in. He's in the corner here. Let's bring him to his usual.
Come on, Jimmy.
Come on, Jones.
Jimmy Vaccaro in studio here. There you go. Yeah, right across.
Why break tradition now?
No, there's no reason to. We do need to get rid of the chair, though. There we go.
Why don't you turn the lights on?
Oh, I think they need to be brighter, right?
Jeez.
This is like when they were interrogating you that one time.
Yeah,
I think it was gaming.
Don't crack
that was
under
doing
pressure.
Oh, please don't bring that name up again. I've been listening to the show. Obviously, there's a lot of information going on. And quickly, let me throw this in here. UNLV had a good year, but don't think they're going to be like top 5 next year. Like a lot of people already are saying, wow, we finally broke. I can remember when it was really hard to get a seat for the Gucci Row.
Oh,
how about when they start losing? How many people were in the stands then?
Yeah. There you go. There's 2,500 people at the games now.
They were flip flops.
Oh wow!
Gucci Row became flip flop row.
Well, they need to get to the first win to get to the second win, but I'm sure that this coach is obviously a little better than people thought. But let's give him a couple more years if they want to, get.
I hope he sticks around.
Yeah,
really. I mean, it'd be good for the school.
It is, and we'll go from there. And the other thing I was listening to, and you two helped me out. The bowl season really starts tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned. Like more teams and more recognizable teams that people know the name, which creates more interest. Whatever. Chris, you've been doing this for a long time. Can you tell the difference when it's a big time bowl game as opposed to like a bunch of small ones?
Well, yes, but not as much this year because you never know who's in. I'm looking at like the Missouri-Ohio State game. What that game's like a right around pick. I forget what it is right now. Yeah. But it
is pick right now.
Yeah. So I mean, what's a legitimate number if they were going to play in early November or late October? What, Ohio State maybe 14, depending on where the game was at, something like that. It shows you all the opt-outs for Ohio State. But when you get to some of the games that I do think are, totally legit, I'll go to my school, Penn State and Mississippi. I think that's going to be a really big game and a really good game. Yeah. So those games I think are terrific. Of course, you get the 2 playoff games. I mean, those are going to be high intensity games. Those are going to be
Super Bowl
fantastic.
Sunday with those teams there. What a great way to to basically at the end of the year with these 4 teams in there. So and it does, and as we talked about, you'll see more big plays coming in here from people because first of all, they really step out when it comes to games like this. They're not going to jump up and down for a couple of bowl games we've had already, but. It's good for business. It's good for us. And then quickly, and you 3 can jump in here because I've been looking at this. I mean, this NFL is crazy. I mean, if you look at the teams and how many people are still live to get into the playoffs, usually this time of the year was like they start resting people. No, they need to win right now to guarantee that they're even in the playoffs. So, what do you think?
You look at really both leagues. There's a lot of teams alive, and I think we had the Rams probably penciled in as dead about a month ago.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they're no worse than the 5th best team, I think, in the NFC, and they maybe even be the 4th. They're playing some great football, but they're on the cusp, so they got to keep winning. And you take a team like Buffalo, same thing over in the other conference. They're playing great football, but they're out of the playoffs if they start today.
All right, this is just for Chris. Is Tomlin going to be around next year?
I don't think so. And not coaching the Steelers. That's I think between he and the Rooneys, I think they'll come to some sort of an agreement that it's just time for a change. And I hear guys talking, it'd be like an Andy Reid situation. Wow. Did Andy Reid forget how to coach? Well, hell no. But he went from Philadelphia and he's won a couple Super Bowls over in Kansas City. I think Tomlin might do the same thing.
Has he got 1 year left?
He's got 1 year left, which coaches, never is a big word, but almost never go into their final year without an extension.
Well, the amazing thing about the Steelers is they had 3 head coaches in 40 years.
Since 69. Since 69,
a lot of stability
really.
there. Yeah.
But they won't do it willy-nilly, but they may come to it.
I think to Jimmy's point, too, and Chris hit on a key game in terms of the college, the Penn State game and Mississippi, because you have a better idea who's playing in it, right? Yeah, there's not been all these opt-outs, and you get a game like that, so you can, there's a lot more stability, and the fact that the number hasn't really moved that much compared to some of these other ones, but to the playoff games, Jimmy, they're like NFL playoff games, right? People bet them that way, and we book them that way. In fact, those games are going to outdo. I'm not going out on a limb by saying that those 2 games individually are going to do more than the Commanders-Jets game this week, and you'd rather book those 2 games than
what makes you say that?
The money.
Well, other than money, I mean.
Well, you think Aaron Rodgers was just playing with everybody else for the previous 3 weeks, and then he?
No. I think once they got knocked out of it, that made up his mind. But
but they wound up cutting one of the guys to make room for him on the roster. I didn't particularly like that. By the way, who you like? One of my favorite bowls this year, the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Did you see what the best part of that is, though?
Brown sugar cinnamon.
The trophy is edible.
What?
It's
Are
a
you
giant
serious?
Pop-Tart.
Is it brown sugar cinnamon?
I think it's strawberry, which is
That's
an error.
second.
Wait, is
That's,
there-
yeah, I mean, brown
Wait, it's
sugar
coated-
cinnamon.
It's s'mores and brown sugar
Yeah,
cinnamon.
right. Those two, yeah, s'mores. I
They're-
forgot
It's
about
got the
they're-
glaze on it?
I forgot about
What was
The
that?
trophy's
two
got
up
the
there.
glaze?
I think so. I'm
no,
gonna pull it up
that's-
right now.
you can't.
Actually,
Chrissy, that's not good for you. There's too much sugar in it. We can't do that.
I'm not in the game, Vinny, in case you didn't notice.
Well, me and Chris did something nice for the crew. We had there's going to be reach your hand into the jar. If you pick out your number, you're going to get the 2 tickets for Usher for halftime for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
that's good.
You think he would go?
Oh, I mean, how could I pass up that, Jimmy?
Oh man, that's
By the way, it's going to be frosted wild berry is going to be the flavor
Oh,
on
it's
the
frosted?
Very
edible.
disappointing. Very
Yeah.
disappointing.
oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
I
love
forgot about s'mores. They didn't have s'mores when I was a kid. They had the brown sugar cinnamon, which was the top of the list. And as I got older, and I would indulge occasionally, and there'd be
S'mores.
s'mores.
Wow.
But
Ryan, this is the first official segment of Chef by the Book here with the with our Pop-Tart. Ryan is working vigorously to get the edible trophy picture for
Really?
everyone at
Okay.
home right now.
Awesome.
But Jimmy, you had a few big tickets. This
Yeah,
week.
we got some tickets for you. Where's the ticket?
they on your desk? Oh, here
There
they
they
are.
are.
Okay, yeah.
Well, first of all, this is
He's a showman. You know, that's-
Yes.
you guys handled yourself pretty good at that party the other night. I want to congratulate you. all.
Well, first off, thank you to you three for inviting all of us. We
Yeah.
all had a wonderful time. The
And
only-
Tom Blazek, too, by the way.
and
He
Tom- yes,
contributed.
Tom
yeah.
as
Tommy
well.
kicked in,
and,
yeah.
and the only potential issue we had is that Frank lost his wallet for 24 hours.
He did.
Yeah.
But
But in his
really
house.
didn't- but he really didn't
found
lose
He
it.
found
Yeah.
it in his drawer.
Yeah,
because he's
right, yeah.
very smart of a guy at that point.
What was me and Sean? Sean was sitting next to me. He says, "Do we get to see Frank drunk tonight?" Sean, I think we might.
Wow. Well, the amazing part about it, let me tell you people out there. Geez, this is the hardest place to work at, isn't it? I mean, we feed these people,
Yeah.
we bring them candy, we have parties, do everything, and Crystal still come up wanted $25 because her birthday was tomorrow. And I said, I'll give you 10. She said, I'll take 50. I said, leave me alone. But it's a hard place. It's a great place to
pressure.
work. A lot of us here have run a lot of different books, and we have a guy like Michael Gahn who really lets us run loose. Yes or no?
Oh, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. The other night when he thought when the Philly game fell Seattle 3, he thought Seattle 3 was a bad number. He called me up laughing, gonna bust my chops because I lost so much money in the book. I said, "No, Michael, we won. That was actually a really I was gonna bust your chops. I thought you lost that game. No, it's his money, by the way, but he has that kind of sense of humor.
Laughing in the face of a 3.
Yeah, well,
Well, a three's every game from now to eternity.
there's a lot of
Same
threes.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've gotten hurt this year
And
for
reason,
sure.
here we go. A little that I think we're getting more plays is because these teams are getting closer and closer.
Oh
and
yeah,
closer.
that's why the teaser prices we've had to adjust the teaser price because the numbers are always every game goes to the fourth quarter.
Yesterday was the same thing.
Yeah, look at that. Fell 8. Looked like it was gonna be a blowout.
Yeah, whatever. So, all right, listen. Let me run some of these numbers down, and you gentlemen, please tell me whether this guy's got a good play or whatever. Here we go. Are you ready?
Fire
All right.
away, Jim.
First game is the Saints and the Rams.
That's
was
last night.
yesterday.
Last night.
And he lost because he had under 46, correct? That would be a loser.
That is a loser.
It was 30-22.
It was
final.
52
Yes.
last night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we'll put him over here. All right, let's go to game 471. That's an outfit called the Cowboys. And he got the Cowboys plus 1.5.
Yeah, we're back to 1.5. So he's got
Up
some
and down,
opposition. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let's put it over
Two-way
there.
action.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys want to do with this game 458? The Atlanta Falcons minus 1.5 for 16,500.
So
Yeah.
Chris, I want to ask you about this real quick
Yeah.
because I know you've said there's never a wise guy union, but it sure seems like there's a wise guy union on this game.
Never's a big word, Jeff.
I know, but it feels like it because
yeah.
you opened Indy too.
Yeah.
The Colts have only gotten healthier as the week's gone along.
Yeah.
And they're just piling the money in on
Yeah,
Atlanta
the first indicators, and I charted these to talk about on the show, but they started betting me the money line. So they got plus, I think, 110, plus 05, even money. I was like, oh, man, I think I got the wrong favorite in this game. And evidently I did. But, Jeff, they still got to kick off and play, by the way.
Well, it's the Atlanta Falcons.
With Taylor Heineke.
With Taylor Heineke.
I know it's Heineke, but
back under
it's
center.
still the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to tell you, Shane, that's his first name.
Shane Steichen, yep.
Shane Steichen. I mean, I don't know if he's coach of the year, but he sure as hell got to be in the conversation.
Sure.
He's done one hell of a job with a team we thought was going to pack up and go home after they lost. Well, first of all, I thought Richardson was not going to be that good. Then he played, and I said, oh, he is pretty good.
Skill.
Now, all of a sudden, he's out for the year. They've won with Gardner Minshew, who's, an okay journeyman quarterback, but they're right in the hunt for the playoffs.
And, as we just talked about 2 minutes ago, like these numbers jumping right around, Falcons minus 1.5. Would you not be that surprised if it came the other side, too, at game time? Because
we opened the other side, too.
I know,
it may go back.
to where the opening number
It
was.
just depends, yeah.
It may.
Well, that's good for us because at least it generates more money.
Mm-hmm.
Arbitrage is always a bad number, but I'll take all the cash and go from there.
Nah, I agree. We die when they fall, but they don't fall that often.
You're right. All right, game 453. This game's been jumping around a little bit too. He got the Bengals minus 1.5 for just a short 22,000 to win 20,000.
I mean, he got the best number by a
I
wide
got a good
margin.
number in that.
Sure
Yeah.
did.
But that's a funny game. One of my absolute sharpest guys who moves money in this town. We opened the game 2.5, Cincinnati. He came in and bet the Steelers plus 2.5. I mean, I had so much respect for him. I went all the way to 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess he guessed wrong and I guessed wrong following him. But, I can tell you what, though, this guy's a hell of a handicapper. And he obviously didn't get the best of the number, but he still might have a winning ticket. We're up to 3 with that game.
Very bizarre game because Jamar Chase is out.
Right,
He's out.
yeah.
Mason
we
Rudolph
know
is
Mason
in
Rudolph
for
is.
But we knew that.
Well,
we knew that.
Look, it is Christmas time, and Rudolph can save the day. You know that. But bizarre game. And that's the early game tomorrow. That's a 1:30 Pacific kick for the Steelers.
I've always said, of course, when you're playing and you're gambling your money, the first step that I think you should take is you got to get the best number, even though where the numbers go.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes people just walk up and listen, it's their money, whatever they want to do. But I've never seen someone who's been around for 10, 15 years, win, lose, or draw, winning in a small, if it's a bad year, they still win a few dollars because they take the best number that you can get.
If you're going to win consistently, you have to at least get a good number.
Right.
Maybe not always the best, but you have to at least get a good number.
And by the way, that game is back up to 3.
Yeah, we're at 3.
So, I mean, so go figure. Right? I mean, overall, 2-way action, right? But we'll see. Plenty of time, too. Overnight action coming in.
Well, here's one of those teams that, 40 years ago, we wouldn't have even booked it because it's Utah State. But now, obviously, Utah State game is 228. And he laid minus 1.5 for just 10,000. So what do you think? He didn't like the number or didn't like the number where he thought it would be when he made his bet?
Well, we're at 2 with the game.
Yeah.
Right.
But I see as low as 1.
Okay.
And that was one of those I mentioned to Jeff before we got going. That's one of my biggest bet games. I got a ton of, you said we didn't even book that. Remember when they'd be like 63-point dog playing Nebraska, week 2. Now they're a legit program. Sure. But I have a ton of money on that game, and I don't think it's a very good game, but I sure as hell got a lot of money on it.
And Georgia State opened as the favorite, right? They opened 2.5 in that game originally. So there's an example of what we're talking about in terms of people vying for information that they believe in, and they're backing that that gathering of information with their money.
And the last game that this gentleman took, and obviously it's an NFL game that played pretty high. Game 461, that's them Cleveland Browns. He laid 2.5, and now the game is he laid 2.5 for 22,000 to win 20,000.
Yeah, we're at 3.
So go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're at 3 with the game. Mm-hmm. C.J. Stroud is declared out.
Case Keenum.
Yeah,
again. Yeah.
This Browns got a hell of a defense, and I think Stefanski deserves a lot of credit for his coaching job this year. I mean, he faced, plenty of adversity. He's on number 4 quarterback, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're right in the middle of the playoff hunt.
Arguably,
both these teams.
Well, I mean, the winner of this game is going to be in great shape playoff-wise. If Cleveland wins, they're going to be able to wrap up a playoff berth next Thursday night when they play the Jets. The Texans need to keep pace in that division, even though right now Indy's an underdog and Jacksonville a shirt. I know,
and no Stroud,
so, with Lawrence right
Trevor
now.
Lawrence,
I know Peterson was optimistic today, but I just have a hard time seeing him getting cleared in time.
Yeah.
Well, I think the money showed against them, which right now I'll tell you what the anticipation is.
Yeah, 2.5 on Tampa now.
Yeah.
And one more thing, Chris, while you're here, is like future betting used to be a nothing, way back when. Now, because anybody can win it, as we've been talking about, and I really have seen you for the last 4 or 5 years there's no sense turning any future bet down, like to win the championship, whatever, because if you can tell me who the hell is going to be the champion. I'm, okay, 49ers, okay, the Bills, okay, but you can name 4 or 5 that's like, could be right there. That's one of the differences. But because remember, way back when, we didn't even book the futures till like August. We'd have them up for 5 months, but nobody would even care. Now it's a big deal.
A lot of times we used to take them down at the first week.
Yeah.
Bet your futures before game 1. That's it. We'll see you in January.
Futures go up now during the playoffs.
Yeah, for next year,
for the previous year.
Okay, are the Dodgers going to win it because they keep buying everybody?
Well, I'm not a 275 with them, and I'm a loser on them right now. It's not like Ohtani won a World Series every year when he was with the Angels. They still got a long way to go, and you get to the playoffs. You're talking about a short series. 10 months from now, they could. Yeah, absolutely. Sure, they could lose.
And mark this down here. This thing might wind up being a Japanese league.
Well, there's a lot of good players coming out of there.
Wow.
Good. Meanwhile, not one lefty in the rotation. Don't forget Kershaw's a free agent.
Yeah, he's going to end up back there.
I think he's hurt, though. Yeah. I don't think he's going to pitch.
He's not going to be ready to pitch until June.
I'm just saying. Yeah. No lefties.
Well, look, as the last few years in baseball have proven, it is a short sample size, which you can get ridiculous results.
It sure can.
We just had the 5 in the AL, beat the 6 in the NL.
You think Texas was the best team in the major leagues this last year?
You think Arizona was even one of the 15 best teams in baseball?
What did they have? What did they have?
The 20.
They had one of the top, one of the lower 10. They were in the lower tier of
who? Texas
salary. No, the
Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks.
Yeah. Well, someone made the joke. I mean, the Arizona Diamondbacks made the Dodgers go spend $1 billion this offseason.
Well, I know one thing that me and Chris were talking about it the other day. Vincenzo, you might have wandered in too. Obviously, they're paying this kid $250 million, and they paid the other kid before him even more.
$350 for the kid yesterday. Yeah.
Actually, 4 because they had to send $50 million to
there you go.
his Japanese team.
Yeah. But I got to tell you one thing about the Japanese guys, and we've seen some of that, on and off. Those guys play really hard.
Good.
They play a great brand of baseball.
But how about this? Way back when, Koufax and Drysdale, they held out for how much?
$100,000.
$100,000.
Because Mickey Mantle got it, right? Mickey Mantle was the first. Was he the first? $100,000. That sound right?
It sounds like it's either. Wow. I know Mays, Aaron, and Mantle were all right there.
What would they give Mays and Aaron today?
Whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, a couple $100 million.
Couple
$100 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wish you get the football.
Jimmy, pleasure as always.
Gentlemen, see you later.
Let's whichever way your
Jimmy,
heart desires.
Yeah, that's what I would acknowledge.
So,
yeah, all right. We'll check in with you after.
No, I mean 100%. We gotta keep track of our guy Jimmy. So let's do the 2 Saturday games together here. We mentioned it. Cincinnati's up to 3 against Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph's going to start for the Steelers. There was some hope Pickett was going to be ready. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. 37.5 is the total. There's no Jamar Chase. There's obviously no Joe Burrow. So, this is this to me. This is one of these games I just crossed off immediately because You're asking Jake Browning to be a road favorite in the division, but then you watch the Steelers the last month, and this has been just an absolute mess since Pickett's gotten hurt.
My power ratings come to 2.5 in this game. Cincinnati 2.5. So I mean, I don't really have an opinion. I don't know. I mean, Browning's been fantastic.
He has been.
He's been terrific. And Zach Taylor, another coach who I didn't think much of in the beginning, has gotten better every single year and really had a good game plan going. And I don't know. I mean, I don't like the game. Of course, once they kick off, I'll be rooting for the Steelers, but I really don't like the game, and I can see somebody betting Cincinnati in this one without any trouble.
Got some defensive injuries still for the Steelers, suspension. I think Pickens comes back, right? But if I'm not mistaken, Chrissy, for the Steelers.
Well, Pickens has been on the field the last few weeks, but hasn't done anything.
Comes back with a different attitude, is my point, or he needs to.
I'm not so certain
if
about that.
He needs to, because I think this is where player leadership, right? The locker room's got to get him aside and say, listen, you got to get over this. Be a pro. Be mature. I think there's also with the sentiment, and Chris knows this far greater than me in terms of the sentiment back there towards Tomlin. I think the players may rally here, and that's part of the rallying around them is to get Pickens with a better attitude, and so I think I look for some player leadership here tomorrow.
But Vinny, I would agree with you, but I don't know who that leader is on offense. You have some of those leaders on the defensive side, but somebody has to grab him. And I remember I read, and this again goes way back when Jefferson Street Joe Gillum wound up coming to a game, high, and Joe Green picked him up by the shirt collar, put him against the locker in front of everybody, and says, "You will never play for the Pittsburgh Steelers again," and he didn't, and that team went on to win a Super Bowl. But I don't know who, Highsmith. They got some good players over there, but somebody on the offense has to tell them, listen. I mean, if you have a great game, you're going to catch 10 passes.
Right.
How about the other 50, 60 plays?
Right.
You can't just sit there with your hands in your pocket. You got to go out and hit somebody. That's the way the game's played.
Yeah, well said.
I don't know. I hope that happens. We'll see.
And both of these teams still in the mix of the playoffs.
They're right in the middle of the playoffs.
Right in the
it's
middle of it.
unbelievable.
Steelers were in unbelievable position a month ago, and now we're on the outside looking in.
3 straight losses, right?
Yeah, they're 7-7. They look like they'd be 10-4 at this point, or at least
9-5.
At least 9-5. At least 9-5.
Teams at home. Bengals, we thought were done, and then ever since that Monday night against Jacksonville, the light has turned on for Jake Browning, and they're right there at 8-6, even without Joe Burrow. See you later. Finally, fire Tom Telesco as well, their GM. Now, Jeff Smith will get the reins of the team for the last 3 weeks. Chris?
I keep wanting to call him Skippy.
Might as well at this point. This opened 14.
Yeah.
In part because Buffalo just looked really good the last few weeks, finally turning that corner. And obviously the horrible look that the Chargers had last week.
Yeah.
Bounced as low as 11. Now it's starting to come back up to 12.5.
It's funny, Jeff, I have a couple of these games where guys took bad numbers for big amounts. And this is one of those games. I got a big bet on the dog plus 11.5.
Oh, wow.
Which really kind of puts me in a good spot, I hate to tell you. But right now, I think Buffalo, if you're going to start the tournament with everybody 0-0, first round at neutral sites, Buffalo wouldn't be too far down the list as far as favorites go. But as of now, they're technically out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I got them. I think they're in third in my power ratings right now because they're playing some great football, but they got to keep it going. I'm not sure how true of a test this will be. I got to tell you, that's a huge number to win on the road. I don't care who you're playing or whatever. But, I could see betting the dog in this one. I really can. It's just a big number.
Micah Hyde out for the Bill. They get another injury. But I have to tell you, in this resurgence, they've actually been responding to next man up mentality. And now, for the Chargers, a stick is a quarterback again, right? So, I mean, look, it's an NFL number. It's an NFL team, plus 2 touchdowns, plus double digits. Oh, you got the Bills all banged up and everything like that. But I will tell you, tomorrow, and this game being in prime time, the public is going to be all over the Bills in terms of
Makes sense.
teasers and money line parlays and support for the Bills because they're on that kind of roll, and it's just probably going to be as much of a play against the Chargers as it is a play on the Bills. So I mean, right now overall probably two-way action, right, Chris? Based on the taking of the 14
I was
down
very
to
fortunate
11.5, and then taking that
early on
11.5. That's a bet that we're going to need, frankly.
You're talking about teasers. I mean, you might want listen if you're a teaser player. There's nothing wrong with teasing a dog in this.
Taking points.
Get it up to 18.5, 19 points. I mean, that's a big number at home. It really is. And
You
I
can
know
tease
guys
both ways.
always look
Where's Frank Nicotero? You could tease both ways.
I know guys are always looking at tease favorites. I'm not sure we're going to have that much teaser action on the Bills themselves getting it down. Yeah, maybe some getting it down.
Well, when it was at
6.5
11
or 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But now it's 12.5. But you tease this up, you get 18.5, and there's some 13s out there in the market. You get up to 19. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big teaser player, and I don't have a lot of numbers to go with home dogs plus 19 or 18.5. But I would have to think there's got to be some positive EV on that. I would have to think so.
Chargers, again, 12.5, 44 to total on that one. All right, we mentioned this game earlier. I very much flabbergasted by the way this has been bet. I know Indy, you could argue, is at their market peak right now with a really nice win, down 13-0, dominate the last 2.5 quarters against Pittsburgh last week. And it's harder to get low than where the Falcons were after last week.
Mm-hmm.
A game that they lose to the worst team in the NFL in a driving rainstorm without giving up a touchdown. It is hard to get as low as they are. But I'm still a little shocked with the way this injury report has gone this week for Indianapolis. There's one thing, Taylor didn't play. If Pittman wasn't going to play, Pittman's going to play.
He cleared protocol, yeah.
And Jonathan Taylor practiced all week. They're both going to play. So, Chris, I'm a little bit shocked at the way that this has not come back a little bit with those two guys healthy. It's a Atlanta 2.5-point favorite. Of course, Indy opened the 2-point favorite on the road in this game.
It's in the NFL, you really have to be aware of being counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
This would be, again, how about we let them play the game? But the way the number has gone, it's very much counterintuitive of what you would think. We opened the game, as you said, we opened the Colts too. I mean, I can't remember exactly what my power rating number was, but it was 1.5 or 2. I had no beef with the opening number of the Colts too. But here we go. I mean, they the floodgates open, and it's been going through all week, and we have almost no action on the Colts. It's all been Atlanta. And for the life of me, I'm not sure I can explain why.
I got to believe there'll be Colt support starting tonight. I would be surprised if this continues to move as heavily as it has to Atlanta. I could be wrong, but I'd be more surprised if there's not more Colt support overnight, particularly tomorrow night and into Sunday.
I'm not doing anything with this because
wait and see, right?
Well, first off, Heineke's playing for Atlanta.
Yeah.
And look, I've been banging the drum against Desmond Ritter the whole year.
Well, they brought Heineke in earlier.
He's been dreadful, but the games Heineke played, the 2 games he started, they lost them both. The first one was the fiasco against Minnesota with Josh Dobbs. Mm-hmm. The second one was losing to Kyler Murray in his return. So not like it's not like they lost
exactly
good teams. By the way, there are 6 teams eliminated right now from the NFL playoff picture. Mm-hmm. Atlanta's lost to 4 of the 6.
Is that right?
Yeah, they've lost to 4 of the 6. And if the Jets had an NFL quarterback in that game, it would be 5 of the 6 right now.
Yeah.
So
too soon.
Whatever. Lost season, Vinny. This Falcon team has just mangled the most winnable division basically ever with all this talent at every position but the quarterback position. And here they are on the outside looking in at 6 and 8. Given a little bit of a reprieve with New Orleans losing last night, but if Tampa beats Jacksonville, you might as well be cooked at that point if you're Atlanta.
Yeah, I know we talk about quarterback being the most influential position on the team, but the other one is coach.
Oh yeah,
And I think there's
Oh, yeah.
there's some issues there, buddy boy. Let me tell you.
He's not surviving. If
I
they miss
don't
the
think he is.
If they miss the playoffs, he's
Yeah.
not surviving.
I
There's
gotta
too much
agree with you.
talent on that team, and also too much talent with the Bijan Robinson guy, who
Right.
legitimately had 7 touches last week. Should never happen.
They
Especially in that weather against that team.
they should have won that game. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, a horrible loss. Speaking of Carolina, they take on the Packers this week. 4.5 Green Bay laying on the road. This is, if you're the Packers, by the way, this peaked 5. You opened 4, Chris.
Yeah.
Packers are in got to save the season mode all of a sudden. After they got the big win on Thanksgiving against Detroit, they pulled the upset on the Sunday night against the Chiefs. Wow, they might be able to get on a run here and maybe even push Detroit and make Detroit work at the end of the year. Hasn't happened. Lose to Tommy DeVito on Monday night, flip around and give Baker Mayfield a perfect passer rating in Lambeau, the first road quarterback ever to do it.
Ever
At Lambeau Field.
Ever.
Ouch. Vinny?
34-20 in that one last week.
I don't think me and Vinny are gonna forget that one soon.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
Oh, yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, that's all we need to say on that. But Chris, Green Bay 4.5.
I think my numbers came to 3.5 in this game. Kind of followed the market because I'm not crazy about needing Carolina ever. I just don't think, you talk about some problems, again, coaching. I have no confidence in this quarterback. But I don't know. I mean, we got up to 5, back down to 4.5. A tough game. This would be one that I'd stay away from. So hard to lay points on the road with a team as bad as Green Bay, but there's a reason they're that big of a favorite. Carolina is just that bad.
I mean, is Carolina going to win? Are they going to win 2 games in a row? Plus, there's illness there. They have injuries. There's some illness reported on the injury report, which it's still 48 hours. Not a lot of difference between 4.5 and 5. So it's kind of interesting that they took the 5, which is good because from our side, we don't necessarily have to go up, right, Chris? I mean, so it's all right. So we know what the threshold. If the threshold is lower than 6 in this case, terrific. So, but the Packers, what happened to the Packers last week especially was it was their defense that just did not show up at all. I mean, they couldn't. They did nothing right. I mean, they recovered the fumble early in the game, deep in Tampa territory. But outside of that, their defense was an absolute no-show. So there you have it.
In Green Bay's path right now, just looking at the NFC playoff picture. By the way, you mentioned it, the Rams, that everyone on Twitter now is saying they're the team you don't want to see in the NFC. I mean, if you're San Francisco, I don't think you care who you see, but everyone else.
Oh, they could bring in the 27 Yankees. I
don't think the Niners would
be
care.
fine.
But for Green Bay, they get Minnesota on New Year's Eve, which looks like a gigantic game in the playoff picture.
Sure.
And then they play the Bears the final week of the year in the bookend where they destroyed them in week 1. But you lose this game, you're done. It's 7, 8 and 9's not. Yeah. You're not going to get there at 8 and 9 this year in the
not
NFC.
As a wild card.
Not as a wild card. You at least wouldn't think, because I think those NFC West teams. The fact that Seattle won on Monday night, I think the Seahawks are winning out and getting to 10. Rams will get to 9, and then you're in big trouble at that point if you're Green Bay. Again, 4.5 against Carolina. All right, a matchup, Chris, that we saw in Houston. Of course, the teams were different. 9 years to the date that Joe Flacco as a Baltimore Raven took on Case Keenum as a Houston Texan, and we're doing it all over again.
Jeez.
Here 9 years later with Keenum, of course.
You
back
were just a little pup back then, Jeff.
9 years ago. What? That was 2014. I was a senior in college.
Okay.
Senior in college in 2014. Cleveland with Flacco. Just as you mentioned it earlier. I think Stefanski's the coach of the year. And
he's in the hunt.
And look, there are a lot of great candidates. DeMeco Ryans on the other side here is also a great candidate.
Yeah.
You mentioned Steichen earlier. We didn't even mention anyone in the NFC where I know Dan Campbell in some betting markets is still favored. Why? I don't know, but he's still favored right now in those betting markets. But Flacco and company are 3-point favorites on the road in this game, Chris. I would be very much inclined to take the points with Houston in this spot where we're going from Flacco being on his couch a month ago to being a road favorite against a team in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I've talked high on C.J. Stroud since last year.
Yeah.
And even before then, problem. I love the kid. I think he's great. D'Amico Ryan's doing a fantastic job as coach. But again, that goes to, the fact that Case Keenum, I mean, this is a veteran quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
I think you got to take 3 at home. I mean, there's no way you could lay this. Now, there's some 2.5 with some pretty heavy juice on the favorite. But I would have to take +3 in this game, if anything at all. And, that looks like that's probably who I'm going to need. And, Jeff, that's who I need at kickoff. I'm fine with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
If there's ever a year to take note of experience under center in the NFL, this is it. I mean, it's not just this game, like with Flacco, right? We look around. Baker Mayfield. Look at, again, we're in such an immediate society now, right? And we're expecting terrific playoff level results from first and second year quarterbacks, first year coaches. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You've got to have somebody under center that can get the job done. And when you look at, now, granted, you have to have some other personnel in place. Don't get me wrong, but you get guys like the Keenums of the world and the Flaccos of the world that understand what the job entails and how to get results, or at least to be competitive. See, that's the other part. A lot of these rookies and second-year guys, they're still trying to figure out the speed of the game. I mean, so the first thing is to be competitive, right? And going back to Stefanski, right? He's had a few years now, too. The same thing with in Cincinnati, too. There's another expectation by a lot of these owners hiring the next shiny toy out of the college ranks to come in and be Andy Reid. It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen. You want it to be immediate. Everybody wants it to be immediate, but have a plan. And I think the teams that are most successful have that kind of plan. They have the understanding. They have the patience, and they're just well-run organizations. I mean, Stefan, this is what, it's fourth quarter. Flacco's the fourth quarterback to start for them this year, right?
Again, it's fun that you brought up well-run organization and Cleveland Browns in the same sentence.
Well, yeah,
but
this
under this regime,
this coach.
Yeah.
This
iteration of the Cleveland Browns is that.
Yeah, this coach, who a lot of people at Cleveland wanted out after last year.
Oh,
which was
today,
beyond bananas with that.
Fans are, fans.
Coach of the year in 2020. They were one. If the refs get the illegal hit that they didn't call wrong in that game against Kansas City, they would have beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, especially after Mahomes got concussed. Yes. And then who knows? I mean, that would have been Cleveland and Buffalo for the AFC title game. What a bizarre world that would have been if we had gotten that in 2020. That was at the beginning of the Bills being this good playoff team year in and year out. But look, you're right, Vinny. Kevin Stefanski is one of the 8 best coaches in the NFL. And the fact that an injured offensive line on top of being on his fourth quarterback, and the fact that they're 9-5 and they're going to win next Thursday, so this is going to be a 10-win team.
Mm-hmm. Well, to Vinny's other point too, look at the fact that Flacco comes in, and he was on the couch a month ago, but he also understands the game. He understands the speed of the game.
Yes,
I mean, and look at some of the other guys that have come off the bench. Okay, Browning really hadn't played, but he's been around for 4 years and had a long career at Washington. Played 4 years there. You look at Gardner Minshew's come in, played very well. The guy's been around. I mean, some of these guys, Josh Dobbs, who, maybe a flash in the pan, but still he has been around, and he's a very smart guy and understands a lot of things. So there is a lot to say about experience. You don't just throw some kid in and hope for the best. Well, I guess you can, but you ain't going to get the best. That I can tell you. But, they got Flacco. I didn't expect this. I thought the guy was probably more suited to a wheelchair than playing NFL football, but he's coming and played well.
He's been great. I agree with that. I mean, he was done last few years, and now he could be starting a playoff game.
There you go.
As wild as that is. All right, speaking of a guy who we thought was done as well, Geno Smith is going to return this week for Seattle off of that dramatic win on Monday night. Drew Lock, the 92-yard drive at the end.
Your boy.
That was awesome to see. I covered Drew his whole career at Mizzou.
Good for you, Joe.
Good. Great. I'm stunned it happened, But it was great to see that and the emotion. That was all real after the
Awesome.
game. The interview,
I would think, yeah.
with Lisa Salter.
Nice story.
So we don't know who's playing quarterback yet for Tennessee. That's the other question. Levis has been seen in practice.
Yeah.
I mean, the hit that he left the game with in overtime was an ugly-looking hit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So if it's Ryan Tannehill, though, Chris, and I will ask you this, is there really any difference between Tannehill and Levis in the numbers? No, right?
I think this is a huge overreaction to the fact that, I think Levis has played well. He's done well. But again, getting back to a point that Vinny made just a minute ago, talking about putting in a 35-year-old quarterback, in Tannehill, who's been around.
With this team.
With this team, knows the system, obviously, been in the playoffs. I mean, the guy's battle-tested. I think it's a huge overreaction. I think, you're out there betting, and, God bless Seattle. They had a big win last week, and, Geno Smith, another guy, it took him a long time to finally find his game, and he's done that. But 3.5, this is just too much, for a road favorite. It's an overreaction to, first of all, Levis might play. And if he isn't, I'm very comfortable needing Tannehill in this spot.
I could see support coming in, coming in on the home team here.
Well,
I'd be a little bit surprised if it doesn't.
And the other thing with Tennessee, Tennessee is awful as a home favorite, as we saw last week against Houston. They're very good in this home underdog role.
Oh, yeah.
Especially under Vrabel.
Yeah, good point.
If you're giving me 3.5 now, again, I think Seattle finds a way, wins this game. I think Seattle's going to win the remainder of their games and get into the playoffs at 10-7. I'm sure as heck not laying over 3 with them on the road.
No.
Going east, not happening.
Well, he's not coach of the year this year, but Mike Vrabel is a hell of a coach.
He's a great coach.
He's a great coach. Again, 3.5 at home with this guy, I would take that every time.
All right, let's do this next game quickly. The number 32 offense against the number 32 defense. Trevor Siemian starts for the Jets. Eric Bieniemy flat out said in his press conference this week that the Commanders were openly thinking about benching Sam Howell for good the rest of this year. Just shows how good everything's going in Washington.
Wow.
Chris, you know what? This is actually the better sign that it is. The New York Jets, who are not capable of scoring an offensive touchdown, are 3-point favorites in this game against Washington.
You'd have to take Washington or pass. I mean, how can the Jets be 3?
Can't do anything.
This will be up. You've been in my office, Jeff. The one TV that's way up in the corner that I could barely see. That's where this game will be.
That'll tell you a lot. Probably. I think this could be one of the more highly bet in games of the day. Believe it. I mean,
I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really. Again, there's 2 games Saturday. We got 3 games Monday. People want action. If they want action on this game, I think it's going to be a wait and see approach or a pass. Frankly,
it's a pass. I don't know how the Jets can be favored against basically anyone but Carolina at this point, but we are talking about a Washington team that is completely given up. Yeah. So there's no pre-flop handicap in this.
And I will say this, Robert Saleh might be coaching for his job. We know Rivera's good as done. He's done. He's out. Forget about it.
I think Robert Saleh is coaching.
I still have the Jets about a field goal stronger power rating wise and overall mainly because of their defense. But the other thing about Saleh, and this is just an observation here. I think Chrissy's absolutely right that he could be coaching for his job. But by the same token, Aaron Rodgers came to this franchise because of the coaching staff. And which to me, if he's got that much of an impact on this coaching staff, which is really not adjusted at all. Okay. That says a lot about the organization. Going back to what I said earlier. So.
Let me say something on behalf of Saleh. They had all their eggs in the basket of Aaron Rodgers. I think they wanted to give Wilson another chance and thought that had he spent a year under Aaron Rodgers, maybe he was salvageable. Didn't get to spend that year. He does not look like he's salvageable. Maybe a different situation would have bred other results. But I could see them making that decision. And that's the one thing I would say. I don't think Saleh should get fired.
I think they'll give him a year with Rodgers.
Yeah.
To Chris's point.
I'm in the camp that the GM is, if they lose out, the GM is 33 games under 500.
Well,
Yeah.
The GM is
Yeah.
33 games under 500.
But
you can't fire one and keep the other.
well, that's what I'm saying.
It's either you keep them both or you fire them both. And I'm on the latter opinion of that because we're talking about the New York Jets here for a second, Chris. We're not talking about a franchise that has been capable for a long while now.
Yeah.
They've had three of their 5 worst offensive games in the history of the franchise when Robert Saleh is the head coach.
That's
I just think that overall ownership is probably going to give this regime a year with Rodgers or attempt.
He'll attempt
if he can come back and stay healthy, right? That wouldn't shock me.
Let's go to Detroit and Minnesota here, Chris. You're on 3 with the Lions on the road in this game. You know, the Nick Mullins experience was fascinating last week. You had some really good. You had some comically awful stuff in there, including throwing an interception to a defensive tackle who was laying on the ground. You know, I don't know if I want to overreact on the Lions side to last week. That just kind of, in retrospect, was a really good get-right opportunity for them against the team that forced a lot of turnovers, that didn't force turnovers on that night. I don't know what to do with this game with the Lions laying 3 on the road. A win for Detroit locks the division up for good. It would be the first time they win the NFC North.
Big home road split for Detroit.
Yeah.
Much better team at home. Boy, I'll tell you what, when I look back at that game last week, if I very rarely make a bet, but a real bet out of my pocket. That would have been a time to bet Detroit. Denver coming off 3 straight road games. Detroit coming home after some bad road losses. Great spot for Detroit. I'm not crazy about this game. Again, my numbers came to 3 here, so no real opinion, and we'll just kind of let the chips fall where they may here. So
pretty straightforward. Taking 3.5 with the home dog and laying 3 with the Lions here. I mean, rooting for the game not to fall. Lions 3. It's pretty straightforward for us. And again, they meet each other in 2 weeks.
Yeah, they had great scheduling. Not the only one who does that.
No, I know
as well.
I get it. I don't understand it. Where the Giants and the Eagles are to do the same thing. So in week, the 15 or 16 and 18 game, 15 to 17 is a 1 week in between. So ridiculous. I don't get it.
It is an indoor game. That's the only thing I will say with the home road for Detroit. But Minnesota desperate, also good home field advantage there as well. Jacksonville, Tampa. Chris, you're 2 right now. There is some 1 in the market. There is some hope that Trevor Lawrence is going to get cleared. Still not there yet. Tampa, the 2-point favorite on this one. You know what? I don't care if Lawrence plays. If Lawrence plays, I'm just going to take a better number on Tampa when he's made active, if he happens to play. The way these 2 teams are trending, one's trending the right direction. Yeah. That's the Bucs. And the other one's going backwards, and now one's Jacksonville right
now. I've always kind of liked Baker Mayfield, and I'm not sure Cleveland made the right choice dumping him and going with Deshaun Watson. We can go into the whole Deshaun Watson disaster. But Baker Mayfield is pretty good. And matter of fact, our friend who did the show with Frankie earlier this week, Dave Damashek, had it on his podcast, -3 it's called, by the way. You should tune in for any football fan. He talked about it. Baker is playing pretty good football. He played great last week. Does he lead them to the playoffs here? Yeah, I think he's got a pretty good chance. But I can tell you right now, some money has recently, and I'm talking about the last 15, 20 minutes, showed on Jacksonville in this game. So maybe there is a good report on Lawrence. I don't know. I'm not with you on this one, Jeff. I'm not against you, but I'm not really with you either. I think it's going to be a tough game either way.
Yeah, I mean, if Lawrence plays, obviously different handicap. Yeah. And if it's Beathard, obviously, we have to see if number 16 is able to go, Vinny.
Starting to see some
one.
Yeah, some lower numbers out there, like 1 and things. Look, first of all, credit Lawrence. He's been beat up for the last month, and he's found a way to get in the games. Concussion's a bit of a different situation, but looks like he's trending towards playing with the money the way it's coming in. The thing to bear in mind is they lose their number 1 wide receiver a couple of games ago. Now they got a couple of wide receivers that are questionable too, so you have to really take note of that. And frankly, the Bucs are in the driver's seat now, and they know this is a veteran lineup. Vita Vea was not supposed. He was very questionable last week. He was on the equivalent of a pitch count in baseball, a down count, and he played exceptional against the Packers. Evans was good, but look at what Mayfield did. So
perfect passer rating.
Again, he set a record, last week in terms of a Packer opponent. So this one here, I think there'll be some support for the Jags, but I also think that there's going to be continued support for the Buccaneers, given that they're a bit healthier.
To the game of the day in the afternoon on Christmas Eve, Miami taking on Dallas. Boy, not good for Dallas last week on the road in Buffalo. Just completely non-competitive against a good team on the road. And then Miami, who, again, we've been asking all year, can they beat and will they beat a good team? So this is a pretty good prove-it-to-me spot for both of these teams. Chris, Miami, a 1.5-point favorite in this one with a total of 50.
We saw what Dallas was weak at last week, defending the run. Is Miami the team that can exploit that? They have 3 linemen are hurt. I don't know who all's in and who's out. They got 3 linemen hurt. Can they exploit the Cowboy weaknesses? I'm not sure they can. I think this is going to be a great game. And again, I keep hating to say I have no opinion, but that's, listen, I'm a bookmaker. I'm not out here to give advice as far as sides. I think the number's pretty good, and I think it's going to be a really interesting game. And Vinny, you've talked about some in-game opportunities. This might be an in-game opportunity
for both sides.
Yeah, I'm not telling you which way to go. I don't know which way to go here, but I do tell you, I will say this: if Miami can exploit that defensive line weakness, and it's a weakness against a run, not against a pass, certainly, then I think it could be a long day for Dallas. But if Dallas can get to the front, they're going to make it very tough on Tua in this game. So I don't know which way to go. I hope we write a ton of business on this game, which so far we have. I hope it keeps going that way. Got a little bit of money show on the under, a little bit. But 50 is a big number.
I think,
I can see that. But this game, I think, is so big for both teams. Sometimes the under is the play on a game like this because it's not quite a playoff game, but there sure is a hell of a lot of playoff implications here.
I could see this total going up, though.
I would agree.
The public gets involved with this, and they're going to love the points in this game, especially because, hoop fantasy comes into play.
It's fantasy playoffs this week,
this is it, and people love to root for their player, and they love to root for points. And when you get 2 offenses like these going head to head, I have to believe that from a public perspective, you're going to see it go above 50. Tyreek Hill's probable. Chrissy brought up a great point about the O-line for the Dolphins, which has been injured the last couple of weeks. Everybody was waiting for both these teams to win a key game or beat a good opponent. Well, we saw the Cowboys beat the Eagles a couple of weeks ago, but maybe the Eagles aren't as good as we thought they were. I mean, look where they've gone through the last 3 weeks, right? Now, these 2 teams going at it here. I wish it was the primetime game, actually.
You and I both. Vinny.
So, but I think this is a game everybody's going to get involved with, and 1.5. It's basically a pick'em game, and I think it's going to be a terrific action. Should be because everything will be going to it. Even though it's the Patriots Broncos, that'll help it. But outside of prime time, this will be one of, if not this one and the Monday night a cap off with the Ravens Niners will be the highest bet games of the weekend.
Putting the 2 games that end Christmas Eve together here, Bears are 4-point favorites against the Cardinals. Didn't expect to say that at any point this year, the Bears being that big of a favorite. And the Broncos are 7 against New England in a low total of 35. I will say I actually like the Patriots on the Sunday night game. Something is not right with the relationship with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And we saw that on full display. And when Payton exploded at Russ after the mess up at the goal line where they wanted to review the play and didn't give him the time. But I kind of like New England. I think there's something off with everything that's going on with Russ and Sean Payton's relationship right
I made the game 7 when it was 5.5. I thought, boy, yeah, so I moved it kind of quick.
Yeah.
So I think right now, and I even see 7 showing up with juice. And we don't do that. So if somebody lays me the 7, we'll go to 7.5. But I don't know about the relationship, but to me, it's either Broncos or pass.
They were out of sync early. They got back on track with in terms of the accumulating some wins. They seem to be okay, but this is not a. I don't think this is a relationship that's going to last.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know what will happen because Russ's contract is essentially unmovable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So I'm not sure either.
We'll see what happens with that, and we know Sean Payton's going nowhere. We know that.
Did you want to mention the Tampa adjustment?
You got an adjustment here?
Yeah, we're down to 1.
Down to 1.
And I see the totals bounced up half a point to 42. Not in our store, but elsewhere.
Say people.
So that might be an indicator that
Trevor
Lawrence is going to play.
Mm-hmm.
At least the practice.
All right, before we go, let's get these Christmas games, guys. We got
Okay.
3 of them on Monday.
We have that one picture guy that I sent you?
We'll get it in a second. Well, don't worry. We'll get it before we get out of here.
Okay, good. All right.
Kansas City's 10 against Vegas at Arrowhead. We saw this matchup a few weeks ago. Chiefs got in a 14-0 hole, won the game, covered a big number on the road. 41 the total. Not much of anything to do here for me on this one, Chris. I think the number's right. At some point, you would think Kansas City may turn a corner this year, but that corner may not show up here in 2023.
In memory of my good friend Mark Henderson, when the road team in a division game won the first game, and then their favorite, he called it a major reverter, and he would play the dog in the second game. So I would just, in honor of Mark, and I think the number is probably a little bit high, to be honest with you, I would take the +10 in this game. Because I don't think things are 100% right with Kansas City.
They're not.
Raiders extra time to prepare. Jacobs questionable, but I got to, he's had a little bit extra time to come in. Pacheco looks like he's going to go here, so I think the total comes back up, especially because it's the Chiefs. But yeah, holding steady at 10. Be plenty of action on this game.
To Philadelphia next. Been one-way traffic.
Yeah.
One-way traffic, 10.5 all the way to 13 on the Eagles, who have lost 3 in a row. And I would say that Monday was the most alarming, where it's one thing where if you get beat by San Francisco, who's just drilling everybody right now.
Mm-hmm.
Another when you go to Dallas and lose to Dallas, who Dallas at home has been the second best team in the NFL this year. It's another thing to dominate most of the game and then lose to Drew Lock in the final minutes of the game on the road. So, I don't want to call last week for DeVito the comeback to earth game because it got hurt midway in that game and then ended up coming back. But this kind of screams Eagles get right and DeVito comes crashing back to earth once and for all here, Chris.
I like the dog here, too. I think 13's a lot of points. I think I would take the dog in this one. Listen, Philly, they just need to win. I mean, do they need to step on the gas? I don't think so. I like the dog. I think it's a big number. It's a big division rivalry game. And, Tommy DeVito, we got another Jeremy Lin story. But I think he's capable of keeping this game close, and I think they keep it close.
Plenty of carryover. It's going to keep going up. I think there's I think the threshold, we're going to probably have to see 14 before we get some significant giant money, or at least 13.5.
There is some 13.5 in the market right now as well. So,
crashing.
By the way, I opened this 10.5.
No, I had. There had been one-way traffic on Philly. Again, definitely something not right there, as we've seen over the last
I agree,
3 weeks. Well, the game of the year,
at
least so far, San Francisco and Baltimore.
Easily a Super Bowl matchup.
Number 1 seeds in both conference right now.
Yeah.
Niners, they win their next 2. They're not even going to have to play their guys the final week of the season. They're in great shape at that point. Baltimore, they're 11-3. I said this last week. I ended up being wrong, even though Jacksonville did their part in losing and not covering that game last week. I don't 100% trust this Raven team, but here they are with an elite defense, a quarterback who is not the same as he was in 2019, but still really darn good.
Pretty darn good. Yeah, pretty darn good.
And a team that has had a leader been tied in the final 2 minutes of all 14 of their games so far this year. So it is a rare opportunity to get an 11-3 team. Chris, you have it at 5.5. There's even some 6 in the market.
I just saw 6.5 pop up. We've been back and forth between 5.5 and 6. I have a feeling this number is going to go up and stay up. I think 6 will be the closing number.
Okay.
I made the number 6. Tough game. So, no strong opinion either way. I'm kind of with you. I think Jackson is a more complete quarterback now than he was the year he won the MVP. I think he's a more complete, not better, but more complete. But this is going to be a really good game, and 2 well-coached teams, 2 really good teams. Can't wait to see this one cap off our Christmas Day.
Great game. I mean, no question about it. Great game to watch, to bet, to book. My hope is everybody comes out of it healthy and moves forward, right? So that we get to see these teams for the rest of the season complete, and because when they're complete, they're clearly the class of their conferences.
And I'm in good shape futures-wise with both these teams, so that would be.
And then there's that, from our side of the counter. So, taking 6, laying 5.5, but to Chrissy's point, probably going to continue to climb. And there's just always support. This is a very strong Niner town, as well as it's almost like you're back up in Reno, Chrissy, with the Raiders and the Niners backing this year.
Thanks for that nightmare, but okay.
Well, San Francisco again. And there are no certainties, as we know.
You saw what happened in the playoffs last year.
I know. Look, anything can happen, but
it's football.
This Niner team at this moment is just so much better.
I got 4.5 points better than anybody else in the league.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
And by the way, the Ravens are that team that's 4.5.
Pretty darn good as well. Number 2 right now in the power ratings. All right, before.
We have something.
No, we got to put it up. I wasn't going to leave before we did that.
No, okay, yeah.
Look at that. The last New York Jets Super Bowl party.
Yeah, Vinny took this picture way back when, and when him and his family, they were rooting. He had Joe Namath plus the 17.5 that day.
That's me on the left there.
And that's
front, right.
That's the last time he got. And Jeff, you were just.
I was nowhere close.
Yeah,
my dad was. My dad was 7.
Your dad was 7. Okay.
My dad was 7 when they won the Super Bowl in '69.
Yeah, that was, and then that was the only shot of the day where I wasn't holding up the rabbit ears on the TV.
Yeah,
to get less snow.
Vinny,
in the
go
reception.
move a little to the
no
left.
No fur coat either for you in there, Vinny.
No, Joe, I didn't get until Joe Willie started to get the fur coat later on.
Gentlemen, fun as always. We'll see you again next Friday. We're almost at the end of the NFL regular season. It's crazy. There's only 3 weeks left here. We're back tomorrow on this show, though. Alex White and I previewing the games tomorrow, full college bowl games, 2 NFL games, college hoops.
You're at 8 tomorrow?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
8 a.m. 8 a.m. Pacific time for that one. Alex and I getting ready for that one. All right. We'll see you tomorrow here on Sports by the Book. For Vinny Magliulo, for Chris Andrews, for Jerry, Ryan, John. Great job as always for Ann as well. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. right here on Sports by the Book.